So if we're on this journey following Jesus Christ, what does it actually mean then to be a disciple? Well, a couple of features of discipleship include following. Following is an essential feature of what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. This is what Jesus said in Luke 14:27. And anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Following is essential. And we follow Christ because he's the Lord. It's interesting when you look up the words in our New Testaments, you know, the two primary words that we think of when we think of Christ are Savior and Lord. When you look up those two words in the New Testament, the word Savior appears, I forget the exact number, but I think it's under 50. The word Lord appears about 700 times. So one reason why we follow Christ is he's the Lord. He's the Lord of the universe. And there's a sense in which he requires us, he commands us to follow him. But there's also a sense in which he gently invites us to follow him. And we follow Christ because he's followable. There's something in him that attracts us and makes us want to follow him. Frederick Buechner said this: a Christian is someone who points at Christ and says, I can't prove a thing, but there's something about his eyes and his voice. There's something about the way he carries his head, his hands, the way he carried his cross, the way he carries me. We follow Christ because of what we have experienced in him and because he attracts us to follow him. So, as we consider two features of discipleship, the first one is following. The second one is to become like. So a disciple is an apprentice. The goal of an apprentice is to become like their master. In the New Testament, the goal of disciples was to become like their rabbi. Not just to know what their rabbi knows, but to become like what their rabbi is. And so as disciples of Jesus, he is our rabbi. As disciples of Jesus, our calling is to become like him. So Christians are not merely followers of the teachings of Jesus. We are followers of the person of Jesus. We don't merely follow the teachings or the philosophy of a person. We are engaged with and following the person himself. And we are following him to become like him. Jesus said in Matthew 10:25, it is enough for the disciple to be like his teacher. In other words, that's the criteria for graduation. When the disciple becomes like his teacher, that's enough. Now you're done. You've finished your studies. You have become like your master. And so being a disciple is not just a matter of hearing what Jesus said 2,000 years ago and then trying to imitate it. But as C.S. Lewis said, the real Son of God is at your side. He's with us. He's present with us now. He's not just a historical figure from 2,000 years ago. He is beginning to turn you into the same kind of thing as himself. He is beginning, so to speak, to inject his kind of life and thought into you. He is beginning to turn the tin soldier into the live person. And the part of you that does not like it is the part that is still tin. So he's transforming us. He's changing us. He's making us into what he is. And that's why this first belief that we're exploring is that theology should be transformative. The purpose of theology is not just to get a bunch of information about God into our heads, but to actually be changed and transformed by the living Christ. This has always been God's intention. Creation is meant to reflect who God is. And you and I, as a part of creation, are meant to reflect who God is. We are created to reflect the face of God. In the opening story of the Bible, the creation account or narrative in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2 says that the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Have you ever thought about that phrase, the face of the waters? Have you ever thought of waters having a face? We often, that word face shows up in the word surface, right? Surface, the surface of the waters. But when a body of water is still, and you look over the side of the boat or look over the shore or the pier, and the water is still, and you look on the surface of the water, what do you actually see? You actually see your own face. So creation there is reflecting back your face. Well, what do we have in Genesis 1:2? We have the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God hovering over the face of the waters. And so what are the waters reflecting? They're reflecting the Spirit. And so creation is meant to be a mirror and a reflection of who God is. And this is the goal of discipleship, to restore that reflection that has been lost, so that we are that part of creation that reflects the face of God, so that people in this world that are looking for God can find God in the people of God as we reflect who He is. As Paul said in 2 Corinthians 3:18, and we who with unveiled faces all reflect the Lord's glory. This is the goal of discipleship.